Welcome to my podcast, What the Fuck, Spirit. If you made it past that name, this is going to be the podcast for you. This is going to be a no holds barred, no bullshit, open and honest conversation with Maria Leggett, and that's me, about all things spiritual. It's time to begin talking in an open and honest way about what spirituality is and what it is not. We're going to discuss all things woo-woo, witchcraft, spiritual, queer spirituality, medium versus psychic, energy healing, light work, shadow work, and any other bullshit that people want you to believe because it keeps them comfortable. It is time for you to grow. Let's go. I'm just going to say a prayer before we get started to set our sacred space, and then I'll introduce us, all right? Okay. Mother, Father, God, thank you very much for allowing Carol and I to come together to do this very needed podcast today. We are so grateful that you are here. We invite in and welcome the guardians and directions of east, south, west, and north to stand in the four corners of the rooms where we sit, allowing in only that which is the highest good to enter. We invite in the above, the below, the within, and the without, as we know that balance must always be kept. We invite in and welcome all whole, healed, benevolent loved ones and beings to join in circle with our crossover loved ones, our ancestors, our spirit guides, and our spirit animals. To again allow in only that which is of the highest good, allowing Carol and I to speak our truth in a way that people need to receive it. And with that, our podcast is open. Okay. Welcome to What the Fuck Spirit podcast with me. I am Shelly Leggett, and I am a spiritualist medium, spiritual badass, whatever the hell you want to call me. I answer to all of the things. Just don't call me late for dinner. Today I have trigger warning all over this if you're watching the video, and if you are listening to the podcast, I want to give you a heads up now. This is a trauma warning. We are going to be discussing childhood sexual abuse, and it may be not the only one that we do, because I want to try to keep it to like half an hour to 45 minutes, and God only knows this topic requires so much more time than that. And I also want to talk about how the abuse affects us. So today will probably be more about us talking about the abuse itself and how it affected us as children. But I mean, further episodes in the future talking about how it affects us both spiritually, physically, mentally, like all the things, right? Because it affects everything more than we even remotely realize it affects us. And so that is some of the conversation that I would like to have today. And I know Carol's on board with this, which is why she's here with me. So without further ado, we will introduce Carol Elizabeth Medium, and she is from North Carolina, and Carol's going to tell us a little bit about herself. Go ahead, love.
So, like you said, my name is Carol Elizabeth, and I have born and raised in North Carolina, the eastern part of the state. I was raised a conservative Southern Baptist preacher's daughter, as well as homeschooled K through 12. So I feel like my life was not the average or typical coming up. Um, and I now have two children of my own, and that really is what brought about talking about everything that's happened to me in my childhood and any trauma, and how working through it is to make sure that I am able to give my kids the tools that I didn't have. Being able to work through things and process things and be, better footing than I have.
I love that you said to give them the tools that I didn't have, because I certainly didn't have any tools to deal with what happened to me. And, it's funny, we talk about this generational trauma, boom, boom, boom. And it has been passed down in my family. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it has been passed down in my family from generation to generation to generation. And my mother certainly did not have the tools to deal with her own childhood upbringing. Never mind, how do I help my daughter in
Exactly.
her upbringing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the things that's super key for those of us who are trying to heal generational trauma, for those of us who are trying to heal our own trauma and the shit that we went through, we have to be able to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, because I value your opinion.
Mhm.
And let's face it, right? All of this is opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
There are no facts for any of this. Um, when we're growing up, we experience the things that we experience and we're angry.
Mhm.
And we don't often have an outlet for that anger
Mhm.
because nobody wants to hear it. I grew up in that household, and maybe you did too. I grew up in that household of be seen and not heard. Shut up,
Mhm.
go to your room.
Mhm.
My voice was not important, and it took me a really long time to even honor my voice, which is why I still struggle with, like, putting out regular episodes of What the Fuck Spirit podcast, because I think to myself, right, and this is one of the small ways that it affects me, who wants to hear what I have to say? And
Mhm.
that just comes from shut up, go to your room, nobody wants to hear it, never mind the rest of it.
Mhm.
So, my opinion, is we hold on to our anger for so long that we can't develop the tools. Because how do you
Mhm.
develop the tools while you're still so fucking angry,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
we have to use the ultimate, F word that everybody hates, and they want to think that the word is fuck, and that's not it at all. It's forgiveness. And
Yeah.
so we have to be able to find forgiveness for those who hurt us, right?
Mhm.
And it's all part of our Father. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It's literally in
Mhm.
the one little book that everybody wants to hold so secure to. All these people who want to be so angry all the time. You're supposed to be stepping into forgiveness. Did we forget this in life or something? But anyway.
Mhm.
So do you agree with that? Like part of your healing journey is being able to forgive that person so that you can really heal?
Yes, but I have found I started going to therapy about a month ago, which I strongly recommend. It took me a very like probably 5 or 6 years. I have been working the courage up to go to it, to go to therapy because of the don't talk about it, don't talk about your feelings, don't air your dirty laundry, right? So I've been going to therapy about a month now, and I've come to realize already that a lot of mine is fear. So there's anger, yes, but it was so much fear to say anything or do anything
Mhm.
that I I was too afraid to ask for the tools. I was too afraid to even look at whether or not I needed tools to deal with anything. So it's like there's the anger there, but I feel like that anger is buried under fear. Um and so I feel like it's kind of like a double whammy because I'm too afraid to move forward, but I'm also too angry to forgive. So I'm hesitant to, open the can of worms and dig through all this trauma to be able to understand and heal it because oh my gosh, things are going to be so much worse. How can you make it worse, honestly, but there's that fear that it's going to be worse.
Mhm.
Um but then there's this other hand that comes just as strongly of, well, I don't need to forgive him. He doesn't deserve forgiveness. He did this to me and like I didn't do anything to deserve this. It was completely unwarranted. And so he doesn't deserve my forgiveness. So why should I have to forgive him? So it really is kind it's not really a catch 22 because they're not necessarily working against each other, but they're right there neck and neck, feeding off of each other.
I completely agree with that. You're absolutely
Mhm.
correct. You're absolutely correct. We can we can go to therapy, right? We can go to therapy and
Mhm.
work through the fear, work through the things. And yet, if you don't find forgiveness, and this is what we have to remember, saying I forgive you is not taking that asshole off the hook.
Mhm.
What it's saying is
Exactly.
the I forgive you takes the anchors and the hooks that they put into
Mhm.
you and your auric field and your being, and you're going, "Screw you, you don't get any part of me anymore." and you're
Exactly.
pulling them hooks out and you're pulling the etheric cords out and you're letting it go. Dude, you have no more attachment, no more right, no more nothing to
Mhm.
my energy. I am in control of this situation. I can defend myself now, and
Mhm.
you just have no room. And so for me, when I say I forgive, it's not, oh, it's okay. That is not at all what I'm
Mhm.
saying. What I'm saying is,
Mhm.
fuck you. I don't need you in my energy anymore. Does that
Right,
make
and
sense?
that's yes, and that's such a big difference because, with my upbringing and the religious structure that I had in my household, it was very much a forgiveness, meaning you were absolved of all of your sins. And
Yeah.
so when I hear forgiving the person that hurt me, I don't want to absolve them, but it's really not about that at all. It's about saying, "I have my power back, and I'm not going to allow my anger to continue to make me think about you." Like, once you release that anger, then you're not going to be so triggered anymore. When you're not triggered, that means that that person is not coming up in your mind. He doesn't
Amen.
have any space in your life anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, that's really the tipping point that made me go ahead and find a therapist and go, okay, I need to work through all of this because he doesn't deserve any part of my life. And I'm going to take this back. And then I'm also realizing how even if my mom tried to teach me tools, which she really didn't know the tools to be able to teach me, but had she tried to teach me tools of how to, conflict resolution, how to understand your emotions, how to, verbalize your emotions, I still would not like I haven't taught that to my kids. So going to this therapy allows me to be able to learn so that I can teach to them.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you're doing that
Mhm.
because I didn't even have tools, right? Literally from the time that I got found out I was pregnant, my only goal in raising my children, literally my only goal in my mind because of my experience was I have to get each one of my children to the age of 18 without being molested. That was all I
Mhm.
cared about.
Mhm.
And so I ruled my parenting from a place of anger.
Mhm.
I ruled my parenting from a place of anger, and that was a choice that I made. And of course, there are a lot of successive, really poor choices that came after that as well,
Mhm.
because I was not the world's greatest parent. Um, and I am not the same person that I was raising them 35 years ago, right? I'm a
Right.
much different person. I didn't have the tools, so they didn't have the tools.
Mhm.
I'm at a place where now I can recognize that just because I have changed and I have asked for their forgiveness doesn't mean that they have to give it to me because they don't,
Yeah.
right? They're
Mhm.
allowed to stay angry. Stay angry. I get it. Totally understand. And I still need you to know that I'm very sorry for what happened.
Mhm.
Now, mind you, because I always try to look at both sides of the story. 'Cause
Mhm.
that's how my left brain works, right? Like, I know that
Right.
I'm a medium and I have this wildly creative right-hand side, but my left brain needs things to make sense.
Mhm.
And so for me to make sense, I have to go, "Okay, so let me put myself on the other side of this," right? And as
Mhm.
the other side of this, in my relationship with my children, I would have been the abuser.
Right.
Not that I molested them because I did not, so let's take that off the table. My kids
Right.
did make it to 18 without it.
Right.
Um But I was the emotional abuser,
Mhm.
right? And I did spank my children with a belt, so I was a physical abuser.
Mhm.
Now, because of that, I have to look at my child's point of view and go, "Okay, just because the abuser is coming and saying, 'I'm sorry,' are you just gonna be like, 'Cool, it's all good?'"
Yeah.
If my DNA related relative came to me and said to me, "I am really sorry for what I did," I would be receptive to it now because I've done all my healing.
Right.
I mean, we're
Mhm.
always in a perpetual state of healing, so let's get that straight. But that's the one that doesn't bother me the most anymore.
Right.
And so if this man had come to me and sat in front of me and said, "Look, I know this is what I did, and I need you to know I'm really sorry. I'm a changed man. I don't do this anymore. And I am so sorry for what I had done to you." First of all, even in my healed state, I have to be honest and say, I'm not sure I'd be open to that,
Mhm.
honestly. And I'm in a pretty healed state about it. Like, I don't let it trigger me a whole lot. I get it. So that's why I fully respect if my children say, "We're not going to forgive you." I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
And I can't even be angry about it, right? I'm the one that did the things.
Mhm.
And so I always try to look at it from both sides of that perspective. So, all that being said, my origin story, I grew up with two parents until I was 5. And then my parents got a divorce a couple times. And that left me with no man in the house, no nothing. And my mom was a single mom trying to raise 3 children, trying to feed them. My grandparents owned a farm. And so
Mhm.
we were always going down to the farm every other weekend so that we had to work the farm so that we could help harvest the food to feed us. So when we're out at the field, it was the perfect opportunity for this DNA related male to find time alone with me because now I was easily segregated, right?
Mhm.
I was the kid with hay fever and allergies that couldn't go out into the field
Mm.
because I had these allergies because I would just blow up and get really sick. So I was always left home. I was left back at my grandparents' house alone. So
Mm.
this was the perfect opportunity for the man to have access
Yeah.
to me, right? And so this went on for like 2 or 3 years. And eventually I had such a temper tantrum, threw myself down on the ground, kicked my feet, and I was a really easygoing child. I listened to everything. I was not lippy, believe it or not. I was not lippy. I was very what is the word I'm looking for? Compliant. I was very compliant until I was 10.
Mm.
And at 10, my brain just went, "Fuck you, we're done."
Mhm.
And that's when my non-compliance started. So, if you are listening to this and you have a child who has just flipped their compliance,
Mhm.
you need to start asking some questions. What is happening?
Definitely.
I'm observing this. You're no longer this happy go lucky child. You're very withdrawn. You're very sad. What is happening? I will guarantee you something significant has happened to that child. It may
Mhm.
not be molestation, but it could be bullying at school. It could be
Right.
anything. And it's your responsibility as the parent to ask those questions. Don't just say, "Oh, they're sullen," or "Oh, they're moody," because you don't want to deal with it. Ask the fucking questions
Yeah.
because
Definitely.
that child, more than anything, that child wants your attention. They need you to ask them, "What is wrong? This is safe. I promise
Mhm.
not to say anything," because that child is scared to death because you don't know what their abuser has said to them,
Right.
right? Mine
Mhm.
was smart enough to know to say how to segregate me. "Your mother doesn't love you. She doesn't care about you. If she did, she'd
Mhm.
be in the house with you right now. Never mind the fact that she's out in the field busting her ass to try and feed me." Right?
Right.
But
Right.
I don't know this. I'm a child.
Right.
And so this is why it becomes really important for parents that you notice the signs. So if you have a child who is beginning to shift, you need to ask the hard questions.
Yeah. Well, and to remember they're a kid. So even if you as the parent and adult have this huge amount of tools and ways to describe and understand and communicate, this is the time where you teach your kids. Your kids don't know them yet.
Valid.
So when they start having a massive emotional change in whatever way that it is, like you said, typically withdrawn and sullen or whatever, that is because they haven't learned those tools. So even if you've explained it to them, they have not practiced using those tools. So they need that help. So you as the adult and the parent, it is your job to step forward and say, "Hey, let's talk about this. What's going on?" And then two, there's therapy for children. you know if you can't get your kid to talk to you but you feel like there's something going on, get them to a therapist where they feel safe to discuss something. Because I'll tell you straight up, I was, like I said, I was raised conservative Southern Baptist preacher's daughter and homeschooled. I was also molested by a DNA relative. Um, and even if my mom had had the tools and said something, I don't know that I would have been comfortable talking to her because it was so close to the for everything, because it's this
Mhm.
DNA related person is the one that's hurting me. And so now my mom's asking me and I have to talk about a family member. Like, I don't know that I would have been comfortable to say something to my mom, but I may have to a therapist or a counselor. So,
That makes complete sense to me. That
yeah,
makes complete sense to me. So, and it's important, right, that the parent opens their mind to say it has nothing to do and no reflection on your parenting abilities, you as a person,
exactly.
has nothing to do with that. But it is giving your child a place to air their fears.
Right. Right. It doesn't mean that they don't like you as their parent. It doesn't
Not at
mean
all.
that they don't want to talk to you. It's just that these are sensitive topics and it's hard for anybody to discuss. So when you have a kid that's going through this, who's for the first time utilizing tools that you've taught them, or maybe you haven't taught them tools, it's still an extremely hard thing to do for the first time. So maybe having that secondary or that step away of having a trusted adult that is not in their life and in their picture, that may be easier for them to talk to.
I don't disagree with that, and, as you're sitting there talking, I can listen to my spirit guides chatting. And they're saying, one of the reasons why kids don't talk is not only is it that I'm afraid you're not going to believe me. The flip
Hmm.
side to that is, especially if you are fiercely loyal to your parents and you love them so much, even if one of them is an abuser, you love them so much, you're trying to protect them.
Yeah.
So, I don't wanna
Yeah.
tell mommy what's going on because I don't want mommy to know that XYZ person in this family is hurting me. I wanna protect
Hmm.
my mommy, I don't want her sad.
Yeah.
So, it's, and being able to so you're absolutely right, being able to put them in therapy as a
Hmm.
child would allow them the space to go, "Okay, I'll tell you, and if you tell mommy, that's not my problem."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, it's just I'm not a perfect parent. I don't think there's such a thing as a perfect parent. We all make mistakes. And as I'm learning and as I am starting to understand tools and starting to utilize them with my kids, my daughter is 13, my son is 15, they're teenagers, we butt heads. So even though I know that my daughter has not experienced, unless there's something at school that she hasn't told me about, my daughter has never experienced any type of real trauma. I've been lucky and blessed and also watched like a hawk enough to make sure that she hasn't gone through the same things. But we
Mhm.
still butt heads. We still fight. We still argue. There are still ways that I didn't know how to calmly communicate something, especially when she was really young. I would just yell and scream because that was all I knew how to do because that's what my home life was like. So now that I'm trying to come to her calmly, hey, let's discuss this, she doesn't always want to talk to me about it because she's afraid that I'm going to respond in the way that I used to respond a decade ago. So I have been, hey, look, you can go to therapy. Would you like me to find you a counselor or a therapist? So even in the situation where I'm doing everything that I can to facilitate tools and communication and growth, I also understand that maybe it's just going to be easier for her to talk to somebody else, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
Um, so it doesn't even have to be a situation where it's a horrific incident that's happened. It's just simple communication.
Yeah, and it is a way for someone to actually empower your child,
Mhm.
right? You're empowering them to give them a safe place to say, "If there's anything that I need to know about, the counselor will
Mhm.
sit down with me," and I'm sure that it'll be the 3 of us sitting down together trying to figure it out. That way there's
Right.
a buffer, and
Exactly.
it helps to have that mediator there to be able to discuss, okay, well, this is why your parent reacted this way, and this is why this. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we're right at all, but
Right.
it also would give the parent a space to say, I was wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and so I love that you're talking about this because it is really good and very important for children to be able to go to therapists. There's a reason why we have pediatric therapists because they're needed,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um,
Definitely.
so talk to us a little bit about your origin story.
So, I have been doing a lot of, okay, so all of my trauma caused a lot of disassociation for me. So it has been a big process over the last couple of years trying to piece together. So I've had like I felt like something had happened, but then I would talk myself out of it. I'd be like, no, that didn't actually happen because I don't have crystal clear memories, or at least I didn't have crystal clear memories of the trauma. And so it took a little while for me to actually accept the fact that, hey, yeah, really did happen. And so once I realized that I was sexually abused, um, I was able to start piecing together things. So I have now been able to piece together from memories that I never forgot, and then things that I have been able to remember over the last couple of years, that I was molested for the first time at about 2 or 3 years old. And then around 6 or 7, it ramped up. My primary aggressor was someone who was DNA related to me. But then there were also other men in the community that molested me, um, all of which are either dead or found out. But it's one of those things that I mean, the abuse didn't stop until I was probably 14 or 15 years old. So out of the 18 years old, 18 years where your parents are supposed to protect you, I was being sexually molested for about 14 of them. 14, 15 of them. So it's just, I mean, it completely shaped everything, the way that I viewed everything. I was very much a people pleaser, very like quiet. Growing up, I felt that I got along with the adults better than kids my age.
Mhm.
A lot of people in the church would talk about how sweet I was and how kind I was and how I was so thoughtful and I was so willing to do for others. But really, it's because I was afraid to step out of line because I was afraid that the abuse would escalate. The things that
Mhm.
my abuser said to me was, if you tell anybody, I'll make it worse. If you tell anybody, you're going to end up in the street. Like, he had all of these things worked out with, like, clear, if you do this, this is going to happen,
Right.
to the point that I was scared to death to do anything, anything that could be construed as incorrect, or not what the picture perfect 50s type of little girl was, because that was the picture that my parents wanted painted, and my abuser took that and ran with it you know so I mean, it's painted the entire beginning of my adult life. I continued to act like that because that's all I ever knew. That's putting everybody else first. Ignore what I want. Don't think about what I want, because I have to do these things and make everybody else happy so that I'm safe.
Mhm.
It made me too a easy target for being taken advantage of in the workplace, being the
Absolutely.
one that the boss would, oh well, if I just tell her she has to do it, she'll do it. That type of mentality, because I felt like I had to.
Yes.
So.
That makes complete sense to me. So I went the opposite end of the spectrum. And I mean, part of me did stay a people pleaser,
Mhm.
and mine switched into screw you, I'm not going to do anything you tell me to do.
Mhm.
I became a pretty non-compliant child outside of school. I didn't listen to anything that my mom said because I was very, very angry with her that she didn't know.
Yeah.
And she didn't know because I didn't tell her. She didn't know because she didn't recognize the signs in me
Mhm.
and my behavior. And so I have the very first thing that I had to do was to reconcile within me my anger towards my mom.
Mm,
And for this healing journey, that's where I had to start, was letting go of my anger towards her. Then I had to let go of my anger towards men,
mm.
because
Yeah.
I don't know about you,
Mm,
but I went through a lot of relationships. And this is
mhm.
why I openly talk about the fact that I've been married 4 times, because I punished men for what this DNA related man had done to me. I
Mhm.
was mad at all men, and I can give you a list of men that I know I hurt, teenage boys. I can give you a list of them.
Mm,
Some of which I've already apologized to, some of which it's too difficult for me to try and talk to them. So I just put please forgive me out into the ethers, the tears, all the things. I am so sorry that this is what I did, because I really damaged some people. And I recognize and accept my responsibility for the damage that I caused those people.
mm.
So I went completely the opposite way. I didn't go within. I went out screaming, and I became a control freak. Everything has to be my way.
I definitely did that as well. I did ended up I was so OCD that I would be angry if my husband put the pan in the cabinet and the handle was not the right way. Like, that's how OCD I was. I
Yes,
realize
girl.
now that it was because I didn't have control of my life, you know? And then even as an adult, I'm sitting here trying to please other people, which means I'm handing them the control. But then at the
Yeah,
same time, I'm inside going, I want control. This is my life. I'm an adult. But I didn't know how to take control
yeah,
because I had never had control of anything. So it was, well, you put the spatula in the wrong drawer, you know? But it was different ways that it was leaking out into my life because I was so hurt and so angry and frustrated, and I needed to talk, I needed to use my voice, but I didn't understand. I didn't even know that my voice had been taken from me. Like, it was so I was so brainwashed. Like, okay, have you if you've ever seen Shiny Happy People on Amazon,
yes.
season 1, not necessarily season 2, but season 1, that was my childhood. I actually watched that series and was looking for myself in the pictures because I was going through my mom's pictures and digitizing all of them, and I found where I met Bill Gothard. So there's a video and
Mm.
a picture with me meeting Bill Gothard, and like the Duggars had spoken at that meeting. Like,
So
that's
all I have to
how.
say is, therefore, by the grace of God, go you. Right?
Exactly, 100%. Because
And
I also.
isn't it sad to say that I would have accepted the abuse that I did go through compared to
Uh-huh.
what those little girls went through?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Because that's just how brainwashed and how controlled and how from the very beginning, you're a woman, therefore you have no rights. You cannot speak. So it's God's will that you don't say anything. And that's where, the religious abuse got twisted into everything, because my God doesn't want to abuse you because you're a woman. You know, we're all God's creatures, you know? So I didn't know
How
as
did
a
that
young.
how did that church upbringing
Mhm.
play into how do you feel now as an adult? How do you feel that church upbringing played into the abuse?
It kept me quiet. Like, 100%, it kept me quiet because one of the things that my abuser said was that it was his God-given right to do to my body what he wanted, because he was the man and I was the female, and he was older DNA related and I was younger DNA related. Therefore, in the way that the ATI is set up, the Institute or the Advanced Training Institute, which is part of the whole book authored thing, they had the umbrellas of God, and so you had God, then you had the husband or the father of the family, and then the mother, and women, and then the children, right? So the children were on the absolute lowest rung, and basically the men are the spokesperson for God. They are God's mouth on earth.
So that means
So
that, so help me understand this.
okay,
So does that mean then that back then any man in that community then would have had a, oh, this makes me choke to even say it, a God-given right to touch you,
yes,
even if they weren't related to you?
yes.
Oh,
Now, it would be like you could interpret it that it was based on the household, you know, that based on the family tree that you had to be a certain way, right? But when you look at, if you take out family dynamic, yes, it would be any man. So before I could be under God as a single woman, like you couldn't live on your own. Like a woman could not live on her own. She would not to leave the umbrella of her father until she went under the umbrella of her husband.
eh.
So yeah, so God's umbrella, then the husband, father, wife, and then the kids. You couldn't leave
So
the
that
kid.
means that you went from dad's house to husband's house.
Yes, 100%. Which still means that any man would have the authority over you. And that's literally the wording that they used, was that you were under your father's authority until you went to your husband's authority.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
And I've never asked you this question. Like, I'm asking you questions that I already know the answer to, but listeners don't know. I don't
Yeah,
want you to feel like she
you're
already knows
good.
this.
No, you're good.
Um, did your vows actually have the word obey in them?
Oh no. No, 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 no. So we got married at my husband's church and we went through everything. It was really funny because I'm like 20, 21 years old in the church. The pastor of the church wanted to do like premarital counseling or whatever. And
Mhm.
typically you'd have to have multiple sessions. But here I am, preacher's kid, and he was like, "So, tell me about you." And I just talk, and I went through every single thing that a pastor asks, and my husband and I had already discussed it because I knew what he was going to ask because my dad had taught us growing up. So I'm going through everything, and he's like, "Oh, well, normally that's something that I have to bring up to the couple, but you already have your answers, so I guess we can move on to the next thing." So when we got to the vowels, I was like, "Yeah, we can take out the obey portion. Mm-mm. No, we're we're equals. We work together. We're a team. He's not. I am not under his authority, and no." So we took that out.
Good for you. I was
Yeah,
I was just curious about that.
yeah. No, it was one of the ones that I 100% was like, absolutely not. Like if I am in a relationship and a partnership with someone, I don't have to obey them because that means they have the authority. That means that I am under them, and I
Yeah.
don't agree with that at all. At
No, and
all.
here's the thing, what it does is, it then gives them the right to say, "But you gave me permission."
Hmm. It does.
Yeah, I don't obey
It
you,
lets
pal. This
themselves all
is
the
a fucking compromise here.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I definitely cut that one out. It was years before I even realized anything, but there was
I
still
don't
that
blame
part
you.
of me that was like, "Mm-mm, no, not gonna do that one."
I will say with every single one of my marriages, I had it taken out.
Yeah, yeah.
And for anybody listening, if you don't know me, my 4th marriage and last one has been 27 years, so I'm 56. You know that those prior 3 marriages happened in my 20s. Done.
Mhm.
And my 30s and 30s, 40s, and 50s have all been with my husband, all of them. I was 29 when I met him. So, I don't wanna keep going too much further just because I know that, you and I could talk about this subject forever. We've
We
been
really
friends
could,
for a really
yeah.
long time because this, and here's the thing, right? Sexual abuse, and I don't care how old you are when it happens,
Mhm.
And I want to acknowledge those of us who were children that it happened to, because that's all we know,
Mhm.
right? We're groomed as children, and it's literally groomed. You are
Yeah.
groomed to accept it, because it starts with, and this is why, parents, I want you to watch what's happening with your family. It
Mhm.
starts out innocently with a pat on the ass.
Mhm.
Then it starts out with a hand on the shoulder.
Mhm.
Then it starts out with that hand on the shoulder creeping down to the newly developed
Mhm.
breasts.
Mhm.
And then it starts with more groping that people, and the thing is, that's how you're groomed, because no adult said, "Hey, don't touch my child's behind.
Well,
Don't touch
yeah.
my child's soldier like that."
Yeah.
Right? And we push our children, and I remember my mother doing this to me when my grandfather had an accident. He had, to have facial reconstruction. This was in the '70s, and he
Mm.
had that big old metal fixator thing on to keep his head
Yeah,
in
those
one place.
halos or whatever.
Yeah, 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 huge.
Yeah.
Sat on his shoulders, the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
She said, "Go give your grandfather a hug," and I went, no, because it scared me, and
Mhm.
she pushed me and made me do it anyway.
Mm.
So in that moment, she taught me, you have to touch and allow touch even when you're uncomfortable with it.
Mhm. You don't
And
have the right to say no.
correct. You don't have the
Mhm.
right to say no. And I
Mhm.
know that that's why, right? And I know that this is nothing my mother would have ever wanted to teach me in that moment. She
Mhm.
just what not the right tool, right?
Right, right,
But
exactly.
my little kid mind processed it and went, I always have to do everything an adult tells me, even when it's an uncomfortable
Mhm.
touch.
Mhm.
So I would never have known my DNA relative inappropriately touching me was wrong. I wouldn't have known
Yeah.
that. It's not like we had talks about sex when I was 8 years old, because you don't.
Look, I didn't have the if your bathing suit covers it, nobody touches it until
Yes.
I was 13. I was 13 because in the religion and the way that I was raised, you don't talk about those things. So, like, I didn't even know the physical act of sex, what it was, until I was like 18, like 17 or 18. Of course, this is
Mhm.
blocking out everything that was happening to me, but like I didn't recognize and realize that that's what that was
Yes.
because they didn't want me to know, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
well, and it's even I didn't realize until the two about 2 years ago, I was talking to my sisters, and there was a man in the church that loved to hug us, and he'd put his arms around us like this, and then he'd like rock our bodies. And I didn't even realize how uncomfortable it was because he only did it to the girls once they started developing.
Yeah, because
So
he was
he was
rubbing his
rubbing our
boobs on
he was
him.
exactly. And this was a man in the church that everybody talked about how amazing he was and how great he was and he's such a nice man and so like happy and jolly and all, but it was so uncomfortable. And even at the time it was uncomfortable, but I didn't understand why it was weird. I didn't understand why it was uncomfortable. And I didn't say anything about it because I was taught not to.
Yeah,
You don't want to offend a church member. Um, but now I look back and it gives me the ick. Like I just a cringe every time I think about it because it was wrong and everybody was like, "Oh, look at how much he loves you. Such a nice big hug." And it's like, No, he's
yeah,
being a perv."
absolutely. And I try not to, I'm trying to see if I can phrase this in the right way, because I don't
Mm,
want it to come out wrong. There are a lot of amazing, wonderful men out there who
mhm,
generally just want to be able to be an amazing dad, an amazing grandfather, an amazing human being in the community. So they will hug children, they will hold their hand, they will do things for them, and that's wonderful.
mhm,
The flip side to that is, when you look at childhood molesters, right? The ones
mhm,
who've been convicted, the majority of them, people will say, "Oh, he was such a nice guy.
mhm,
Everybody loved him."
mhm,
So it's not that every nice man is a pervert. However, the majority of perverts are really nice men, because they
mhm,
know how to manipulate a situation to get that child to trust them, to get that parent
mhm,
to trust them. So
mhm,
my children, because I had 2 girls first, My children never had a male babysitter ever.
Uh-huh.
Never gonna happen. I don't give a fuck how nice you are, not gonna happen.
Uh-huh.
And, I had the bathing suit coverage conversation with my children from the time they were 3.
Yeah, me
I
too.
mean, as soon
Me
as
too.
you understood, right? As soon as you could point and go, "These are my breasts and this is my vagina," nobody
And
can touch.
appropriate names too.
Yes, appropriate names. Don't use cookie. Don't
Yes.
use that. Don't. I
Uh-huh.
don't care if you're uncomfortable with it. You're gonna put your kid in an uncomfortable
Uh-huh.
situation too. Anyway, it's a whole nother episode.
I know.
But, I had to have those conversations with them early for that
Mhm.
reason,
Mhm.
because I was a single mom and I knew one day that I would get married, right? I would
Mhm.
expose my children to another man, and I needed them to know that if anything should happen, they could come to me right away and say, "Hey, listen, such and such touched me in my bathing suit area."
Mhm. And they'd be gone.
Correct, and I didn't teach them that it was inappropriate. What I said was, "Nobody has the right to teach you. You have bodily autonomy. Nobody has the
Mhm.
right to touch you in your bathing suit area. Nobody.
Mhm.
If it makes you uncomfortable while mommy's giving you a bath and you don't want me to watch your genitals for you, I'll give you the washcloth and I'll watch you and I'll tell you what to do."
Mhm.
And that day did come, right?
Right.
That day did come where they're
Mhm.
like, "Mommy, I don't want you to do that anymore." Okay, cool. And then I stopped even being in there. I didn't go in the shower,
Yeah.
nothing. You go.
And how amazing is that? Because my I did that with my kids too. Once they got about 3, 4 years old, I'm like, "Okay, you wash yourself. Mommy will make sure that you've done it, but you can do this. And whenever you want me to leave the room, that's fine. You just need to make sure you actually clean everything, you know?" But how amazing is it that our kids were able to say, "Hey, mom, I want you to leave the room. I think I'm
Yes.
old enough to take a bath by myself."
Yes.
Like, the fact that we were able to give our kids the ability and the confidence to say no, and then to back that up with action and saying, "I respect you. I'll be right outside. Call me if you need me," you know?
Absolutely. I can think of, like, so many different situations where my kids would take their bodily autonomy,
Mhm.
and I would just be, like, so sad.
Yeah.
Right? We can't play squishy butt going up the steps anymore. Bodily
Yes.
autonomy. "Mom, I don't want you
Yeah.
touching my butt," right?
Yeah.
Because they just have those cute little tiny heinies in their diapers and in their
Yeah.
little training pants, and you're just, like, squishing their butt as they go up
Mhm.
the step. They're just so cute. And, they don't find it funny anymore when they're 5. "Will you please stop?"
Yeah, well, and
"Okay."
even, "Mom, I don't wanna give you a hug and a kiss as you drop me off at school."
Oh, yes. Yes.
That it's like, "But I love you." But
Yes.
outside, I say, "Okay, I love you, be safe, have a good day."
Yeah, and that's not easy, right? Because
No.
if you push them past their comfortable point, you're teaching them that
Mhm,
it's okay.
mhm,
And I don't know about you, but it started earlier with my son than it did with my daughters. Like, my daughters were fine with it, but, my son's, like, first day of 5th grade, he's like, "Mom, you can drop me off around the corner from the school." "What?"
yeah, no, see, mine's different. So my son, even today, still will give me a hug every morning when I drop him off, and he's 15. He'll give me a little pat on my
"Oh,
shoulder.
lucky you."
My daughter is like, "Ew, you exist?" I'm like, "Somebody had to drive you here."
Yes, 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 yes.
She's 13, but she's like, I'm like, "Okay." But
Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience before we close this episode of What the Fuck Spirit podcast out? Is there would you like to share with them, you're a medium and a good
oh,
one at
yeah,
that?
forgot that whole point, yeah. Uh, so I had this really kick-ass teacher, and her name is Maria Leggett. But I'm a medium. I, do some energy work, some energy healing. It's similar to Reiki, but it's not. I have a website, carolelizabethmedium.com, where I do readings. And I'm working on creating some classes and things like that. It's taking my time, doing it at my pace as I am continuing to take classes.
I love
And
it.
I'm really enjoying it. So I feel at home for the first time when I'm a medium. Like, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. So
Isn't that amazing?
yeah. because I never felt
Yeah.
like I fit in, you know?
And now we fit in
Exactly.
where we belong, because this
Exactly.
is our universe
Uh-huh.
and this is where our weirdness
Uh-huh.
meshes.
Yes.
So these are the moments where I say to spirit, thank you for all of the difficult shit that I've been through, because
Mhm.
my aura radiates, right? I've been molested. It does, it
Uh-huh.
radiates that because it's an experience. It doesn't
Right.
define me, but it's in my energy. And
Right.
because of that, right, we talk about the law of attraction. And I know
Uh-huh.
some people don't believe in that, whatever. But I know that because my energy holds that piece, I wind up getting so many clients this has happened to. And I am
Right.
beyond grateful that you were one of the human beings that came across my path, because you're amazing and
Yay.
I love you. And I'm so
Thank
grateful that you were a student first. And now you are an amazingly close friend. And I adore you. And thank you for being on the podcast with me. So, any of you who would like to go and get a reading with Carol, go to carolelizabethmedium.com, book a
Mhm.
session with her, because, Carol and I don't believe in competition.
No.
We are
Look, you're going to be led to who it is that you need at this time. If it's
correct.
Shelly, awesome. If it's me, great. And we're both here to serve you in whatever way that we can. And
Exactly.
I 100%, I don't feel that there is any competition when the mediums or healers are doing it for the highest good of those involved, because spirit will bring me who I need and it'll
Amen.
be fine.
Amen.
So
Because we have two completely different backgrounds.
we do.
So there are different things that you're going to know that you'll get. I mean, you could go to
Hmm.
both of us and get two completely different readings that are both
Hmm.
accurate, just because
Exactly.
you're going to pick up different information based on our backgrounds.
Hmm.
So I love that. And you really must have had a good teacher.
I know, right?
So anyway, join us back here again we're probably going to do at least one more episode of this, because we need to talk about how it affected us, right?
Yes.
We talked about the fact we put it out there. I talk about mine openly.
Mhm.
And thank you, Kira, for coming on here and being vulnerable, because this is the first time you're sharing publicly what happened to you.
It is.
So thank you for allowing me to be here with you, create this safe space container for you, and just love you through all of it. And it has been truly a blessing for you to be in my life.
Aw, you're gonna make me cry. I'm so lucky and blessed and happy to have you. And like I jokingly, but I'm serious that you're an amazing teacher and you
Thank
helped me
you.
find, like, helped me realize that I'm not crazy.
No.
You know, I see things, but it's not that I am seeing things, you
Yes.
know, they really are there.
Yes.
And helped me learn how to make friends, you know,
Yeah.
and be okay with who I am. So
I love it. All right,
I love
everybody.
you.
We'll see you on the next episode when Carol and I get together and talk more about how this really has shaped our life and
Mhm.
changed everything about us. And so we are grateful to you and for listening all this long, because I definitely didn't mean for it to be this long, but it is what it is. Love you all. Mwah.